Hi, and welcome to the Tali Loz podcast, where we discover spirituality together. Today, I've got with me Phoebe, who is a psychic medium and helps to coach grieving grievances with the help of spirituality, with spirits. And to me, it's a very, very interesting subject. So I'm going to talk to Phoebe about it, and I will definitely learn a lot in this podcast. Hi, Phoebe. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you for joining on my podcast.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So, to Phoebe, tell us a little bit about yourself first, and how did you discover also your psychic mediumship as well?
Yeah, so about me, I mean, I could go on for ages, but so my psychic mediumship, which is probably the easiest place to start, started from when I was a child. So I always saw spirit. I was always a child that would wake up terrified in the night. I would always experience kind of unusual things that just didn't really make sense to me as a child. It was quite scary as a child. And as time went on, I kind of distanced myself more and more from those gifts because of fear, because I didn't understand what it was. It was, terrifying. So I distanced myself more and more. And then my dad passed away in 2019 after a 3-year journey with cancer. And there was almost like a huge shift in me when that happened, where I, first of all, felt very safe to start going into my gifts because my dad was in spirit. It was kind of like I had a little bodyguard in a way, like, oh, he's in spirit, so I'll be fine. Wow. And second of all, it was a huge pull for me. There was like this massive kind of like calling within me, like, now's time, you've got to go into it, you've got to be brave, don't be scared, you can do it. So I started to kind of explore psychic mediumship. I knew I needed to have guidance in that because I didn't know much. I knew what I saw, but I didn't know what to do with that. So I joined a amazing circle with 2 ladies who have been mediums for almost 40 years. They're both incredible. And they kind of, have been coaching me for the last couple of years on how to use my mediumship, how to protect myself, what kind of things you can do. And it's really opened my eyes as well into how diverse the world of mediumship is. It's not just you're a psychic medium and you all see the same. It's so wide, like how many different abilities people have and what we kind of can give to each other as well to work as a collective. So that's how I ended up kind of, exploring my psychic mediumship.
So it has been there since childhood. So it must be quite scary. I think also in that day and age, like you can tell the youth is talking about it a lot more open than I think we're similar age. So than we did. So what kind of your abilities do you have, and how did your coaches help you to explore them? Do they have the same abilities, or is it still slightly different?
Yeah. They're all different, really, and everyone that's in my circle is all quite different. So I'm clairvoyant, so I can see, and I'm clairaudient, so I can hear. And at the beginning, when I first started in my mediumship, I just assumed I was clairvoyant. I could just see, and that was it. And almost as time's gone on, my clairvoyance has taken a bit of a step back and I hear much clearer, which makes sense to me now. At the time, it didn't make sense. I was like, why am I just hearing? I'm not seeing. But I do a lot of channeled writing with spirit. So it makes so much sense to me now why my clairaudience has to be stronger, because I need to be able to channel that through hearing. And both my medium teachers, they're so different. One is like, they're like yin and yang. One is this beautiful, gentle, calm lady, and she's clairvoyant. And then I've got my other teacher who is this really like strong, powerful woman. And she is a trance and transfiguration medium. So she does a lot of like deeper work with spirit and brings a lot through. So they're both incredible in their own ways. It's really
very different. Yes. And so for the people who are not that familiar with it, like what would you hear and what would you see, for example, for the people that are not very aware or don't really know what that is, clairvoyance and clairaudience?
Well, it's different for every medium. A lot of mediums can get things in like symbolism, and then it's up to them to kind of learn their book of symbolism in a way. So like if they get shown a bunch of flowers all the time, they might realize that actually links to being a birthday, like it's a gift for a birthday. So then you can share that in your reading. In terms of when I bring people through for readings for loved ones that have passed over, they come and stand next to me so I can see them, and it's almost like a projector screen. So it's not as a physical like me and you as I see you now. It's like a projector screen, and they stand there as they are, And then I just hear them talking the whole time through my ear. So just one ear, so this ear. So it just depends. And then some people see it so strongly, like, as you know, so physical. It just really depends. Other people just sense it, so they just have that feeling. Some people get a lot of the actual physical pains and emotions that person felt. So it's really interesting. Really,
yeah, because you were talking about that your dad passed away in 2019, and that's where it started for you, and something beautiful came out of it, which is your book. It's called The Gift. And everybody can find it on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description as well. And tell us about how was that process for you, and how did your book come about, your gifts and the channeling with your dad?
Yeah, so it's a real interesting one. My dad, as a person, as a soul, was this hugely passionate kind of being. He adored life. He was just like this energy bomb who he just wanted everything in life. Like, he just loved it all, the connection, the love. And he always desperately wanted to write a book, but he obviously became too poorly. He never got the chance to. So I'd been working with him in spirit, bringing him through for about, I'd say, 6 months, maybe almost a year. And I kind of started, like, when I would hear him and I'd sit with him, writing kind of bits down that he'd share with me, and it was more just wisdom. I felt like, God, this is just so incredible. Like, you can still share this stuff with me. I could send it to my mum, send it to my brothers, my sister, and be like, Dad just shared this. And it would be really like incredibly powerful words about, you know, like the gift in life and embracing stuff, even though it's, you know, it can be awful, which life can be. It's painful, it's brutal. But it's also incredibly, incredibly beautiful. So I'd have all these kind of bits coming in, and it kind of started just turning into this Word document of all these paragraphs of things my dad had shared with me. Until one day I was sat with my laptop writing, and he was like, you need to write the book for me. You need to write the book for me. And I was like, write the book for you? And you're like, I don't have time to write a book. Like, I'm a mother. I'm, you know, a psychic medium. I'm a coach. I do so many things. I was thinking, I don't have the time, Dad, to bring this book together. But when I say we wrote a book, it was so simple. I simply put my fingers on my laptop and it just flooded through easily. Like, he was just talking, and I was just keeping up whilst I typed.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. It would be like I'd get to the end of a chapter and go to like read it back, because I almost wasn't even aware of what I'd written. It would be like, oh, I don't even know what I've written in that chapter. Does it even link to the next one? Because it was so obvious that it just wasn't me. I was just the channel for him. So it turned, I created it into a book. And there was a part of me that had that whole fear, like, oh, am I going to, you know, share this with people? And they're going to be like, oh, Phoebe, like, you really think this is your dad? I'm not very sure. Like, I think maybe, you know, having a bit of a breakdown. All those kind of, insecurities came up. And it was so beautiful and incredible to have so many people kind of come back and be like, you can hear your dad in every word. Like, you can hear your dad in every word. It's just him. The whole book is him. It's incredible. He's it's an incredible thing to do.
So you felt almost you were like in a trance state.
Yeah.
And were you, at the time when you're writing, were you aware, or were you actually in a trance or meditation state, depending on how you want to call it?
Yeah.
And then just went, and then sort of you came back, and then you realized what you've done. Is that sort of the right description?
It's similar to that, except I wouldn't have to do anything to get into the state. So a lot of the things when I want to channel stuff, if I want to go and meet my spirit guides, for example, I will go into a meditation, or I will sit intentionally and bring them forward. But with my dad, it would simply be, he almost saw like the light bulb on top of my head, like, Phoebe's ready to write. And he would come forward, and it would be almost like I was in a bubble. So like nothing else. I mean, my kids were running around the kitchen. It was, you know, chaos. My house is always chaos. But I would simply just be in that bubble of writing. Like, nothing would distract me at all. I could just clearly hear everything that needed to be written.
Wow. That is amazing. That's so powerful as well.
Yeah.
Cool. And I think that must have also given you the confidence that you do have these abilities that you had since a child. I think a lot of children, especially nowadays, we did talk about it briefly, that they are so much more capable than we were, the younger ones. And it must have been so scary that you thought, okay, I'm weird, I'm a bit crazy, or like you just said yourself, like, oh, Phoebe's having a meltdown. But actually it's not. It's our spirit teams, which we'll come to in a minute, why it's a team, that help us. They're there to help us, right? Yeah. And did it help you with your grief as well, that you could channel him?
Massively, like immensely. I think, and I feel deeply when we are grieving, which to me is a never ending journey. It's not like there's going to be an end point where I will stop grieving over my dad. I long to have my dad back on the earth. Do you know what I mean? But there has to be a way that we can work through our grief and shift the emotion. So we can't keep it in us. If we keep it in us, we become depressed, we become negative, we're disconnected. We can't channel freely. We're not free flowing. Like, we're meant to be so free flowing as these souls within human bodies. But when we're blocked with so much of our stuff, we just we can't break through that. So writing for me is huge alchemy. It's one of the most insane releases that I cry. Like, I have my blog as well where I write about grief. I write about it so honestly, so rawly. Like, I don't hold back, because grief it's horrific. Like, some of the ways that we've lost our loved ones is horrendous. So I want to, when I write, I want people to know, like, you're not on your own in that. Like, I get it. I know it's incredibly, incredibly hard, but just express it. Like, don't hide, don't worry. We worry so much, like, oh, are people going to get annoyed at me if I keep talking about my dad, for example? Should I be over it? Should I, try and be happier? It's not about that. Like, just be how you need to be. And when I write, I can be I can just be me, like my truest self. So that's why I find it so incredibly healing.
Oh, that's beautiful. And that's where you also then started coaching, or did you do that before, or did it came after your coaching with grief as well?
Yeah, it all unfolded.
And how does that work in terms of connecting to your spirit team? Let's start at that basic. So you were talking about a spirit team. So you don't have just one spirit guide, you have a whole team. And how do you know your team? How did you get to know them?
Yeah, so I believe, like, my personal belief is that we all have more than one guide. I feel that we have our main guide, and then I feel that we have other guides that step in at times in our lives where we need them, okay? So my main guide that brings people through when I do readings, that stands in a lot of the things that I need to be kind of like protected in. I have seen him, I first met him when I was a child. When one of my animals passed away, weirdly, we just buried one of my animals, and my mum and dad walked off, and I remember the sun came down and just shined on top of where we just buried my cat, and I was really upset. I loved my cat. She was like so precious to me. And the sun shone down on top of my cat. I think I was about 7 or 8 years old. And I looked over and I just saw for a quick second this outline of this man just stood next to where we just buried her. But it didn't scare me. It was the strangest thing. Normally I'd be terrified. Everything terrified me in spirit as a child, but that didn't. I felt incredibly like, it's okay. Like, you don't need to be scared. And I just walked off. And then when I started working with my 2 teachers, they kind of they really encourage you to use your guides, because our guides are here to be, navigate us through lives. They're that like inner voice, when you're like, should I do that or shouldn't I? And it's like, no, I definitely shouldn't do that. That's your guides being like, come on, like, take this path. Don't take that path. That's the wrong path. Go on this path. Make sure you stick to the path. Right. And your guides are what connect spirit to humanness. Like, our earth realm vibrates lower than spirit, spirit realm. So they're like the connector of the two. They bring people through. And that's my main guide. And then I've got a few other guides. One of them is a lady that comes through. I've only started to get to know her, I'd say, in the last 6 months, but she comes through for a lot of my female empowerment stuff. And then I had a guide for a long time when I first started my writing, for about a year, that used to step forward and write with me, because I'm dyslexic, so I can't actually spell. I can't really get my words in my head onto paper, yet I can write a book and I can write my blog, and it just comes easily. So he comes forward and does that for me. And they've all got their own personalities. They're all, it's like meeting another person. It's incredible. I love my spirit team, make me feel incredibly safe working with spirit.
Yeah. And they all have their own name. And do you also, for example, know where they come from? Do they come from like the earth being, I have to say, their earthly bodies? The last time they had an earthly body, what time they come from, or how did they dress, or can you see that as well?
You can see, it depends on you as a person, and it depends on the guide. Like, one of my guides I know quite a lot about. I do, and I could draw him, like, I know so much. A few of my other guides, I know very, very little. I just simply see them as the presence that they are, and then can feel their words kind of channeled. But I don't know where they've come from, if they're on my ancestral bloodline. I don't know why they've been given to me. Some of them don't even give you the name. It just depends. Like, and I just believe if you're meant to know all the stuff, then you'll know. And if you're not, then you're not meant to know. Just trust the whole process.
Yeah, trust the process. Exactly. That's so beautiful. And do you actually know if your dad was also a psychic medium, or he had clairvoyance or clairaudience, or does it come from your mum's side, or was it in your bloodline?
Yeah, it's not. Well, normally it is always carried in bloodlines. For my mum, she is a seer, so she sees, you know, things in dreams. She has kind of future downloads a lot. She gets a lot of images. My dad, I feel that if he had been on the earth much longer, he would have turned out discovering that he was a medium. But I don't think he ever went into his gifts because of it's, you know, it wasn't nowadays. Like I said, I've got my stepdaughter, and it's so like trendy to be into spiritual stuff and crystals and, you know, your chakras and like all of this stuff. They're talking about it, which is so cool. It's such a cool trend to have, you know, in at the moment, isn't it?
Yes.
But years ago, it just wasn't a thing. Like for me to say to any of my grandparents, oh, were you a psychic medium? They'd be like, absolutely not. And I wouldn't tell you anyway. Like they would have been put in like a nut house. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't okay to express yourself in that way. You had to be this vision of, you know, what is normal in society. And being 100%. A psychic medium wasn't it. So it's really hard to trace it back. Some people know, and it's amazing. I think it's incredible when you can trace it back along your bloodline. But I find it incredibly hard to get any answers about where mine come from.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm sort of in that moment as well, trying to discover things in my family, but it is hard. It's very hard. My grandparents passed away, unfortunately, way before my spirituality was this strong as is it now. But I wish they were here. And I haven't been able to channel them or anything myself at all. So I probably need to help with that. But I am very curious of, you know, if those kind of abilities are somewhere in my family.
Yeah, so I find like our family bloodlines fascinating.
With your spirit team, you also mentioned before we talked about a spirit circle.
Your soul circle.
The soul circle.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so it's my belief that we all have our own soul circle. So our soul circle to me is that feeling when you meet someone and you're like, I know I've been with you before in another life. I know that I'm meant to be on your path. Like we're very aligned to be together right now. And I really believe, and this has become more and more obvious to me as I kind of explore my grief journey, the longer it goes on, that we make agreements within our soul family before we come here. So we sit as a circle and we kind of decide like what roles we're going to play in one another's lives. What do I need to learn in this life? Where do I need to go? Where is my path going to unfold? And how are you going to help me do that? And then we offer ourselves in different ways. So like for my example, in my situation, my dad was, like I said, incredibly passionate about life. He was like my inspiration daily. Like we were just so incredibly close. He was my best friend. And it was at first so hard for me to ever get around. That is a really irritating phrase. Everything happens for a reason. And when that gets used in grief, it's really insulting and I get that. But as the time went on, I kind of could see how my journey was unfolding, and none of that would have happened had my dad not passed. So I wouldn't have started writing about grief. I wouldn't have written a book about it. I wouldn't have started my coaching, helping people grieving. I wouldn't have started my female empowerment stuff. I wouldn't actually be the strong, like, individual that I am right now in this very moment had he not left the earth. So to me, it's just so incredibly obvious. It's deeply sad. Like every time I say it, it's hard for me to say. I do think, God, I can't believe I even say that. But I do get why he had to leave. I get why he had to leave, because I would not have been doing any of this stuff had he stayed. I wouldn't have. And then things wouldn't have escalated. I wouldn't have been able to help so many people.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's my belief in a soul circle and a soul family and our contracts we make with each other before we come here.
Yeah, I think that's such a beautiful thought. Very beautiful. And I think also people would wonder, like, oh, but your dad was older. But I think we both agree that time doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Time is a human concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so for those who think, oh yeah, but your dad was older and your grandma was old, like why would you be, how does that happen? But there is no such thing as time. It's a very difficult concept to think about, especially if you're not familiar with it. But I would recommend people just to calmly think about why is that. And I think also for your maybe for your mum who's a seer that thinks she sees in the future, but it's a human future. It's a human future. It's not the universe's future, because there's no such thing as time. So you can just channel different lines in the universe.
It's not, you don't have to push it. Just allow yourself to travel into it. Like, what would be my soul? What would have I agreed before I came here? Why these things happened? And when you can start to see that and a pattern in your life, there's a deep acceptance that comes with the pain. Whilst it's still just as painful, my grief is still just as painful. I still long to be with my dad. I deeply, deeply do. But there is a deep peace that I have around it, because I know that he had to leave for me to be in this world, to be kind of doing this work.
Yes. And do you also feel that you accept, or you're not maybe afraid of the mortality anymore yourself?
I think the more you work with spirit, the less you feel scared about the end of life or death, because you realize it's actually never the end. All it is a different space to where we are now. Where we are now as a soul in a human body is the earth. When we leave, the soul, which is the essence of us, it's the beautiful part of us. Our human is literally just a case, which does an amazing job to carry us, but that's all it is. Our kind of the deepest parts of us, the beautiful parts, are our soul. So when we kind of leave our humanness and we go to spirit, in my opinion, we go home. Like, that's our home in spirit. That's where we are meant to be until we make those agreements again. And then we come back maybe to earth, maybe to different spaces. I don't know. I see everything as a possibility. I will never definitely be like, this is how it works and that is it. Like, I love learning and hearing other people's like things and experiences and what they've, I love it all. I think that to live in a way where we put ourselves in a box as a human and say, this is the world, this is life, this is how it should be, is a deep, deep shame. It's a deep, deep shame. And it's not forcing anything on anyone ever. It's simply saying, like, just allow yourself to travel into other possibilities, because there's such beauty in that when you can do that. It's an incredible, incredible discovery.
Yeah, and it brings a lot of self-peace. I think especially in these times where things are very difficult, there's so much discussion about everything that to do with COVID and what to have a vaccination or not. And it's all up to people themselves completely, 100%. But I think for those around me that I've been talking to, the most people that are more spiritual and in touch with the spiritual world, they have so much more peace within themselves to make their own choice, but also to accept other people's choices.
Absolutely. Because you are a free soul. So you don't base how you move through life on anyone else. Like, I don't look at somebody else now, and I would have, trust me, I would have before my dad passed away, and I would have compared my decisions with their decisions on every part of life, not just anything to do with what we go through right now. I would have put my own worth behind, because I'd be like, well, I should do that because everyone else, like, it's a clouded way to live. 100%. Whereas when you start embracing spirit, the peace and like I said, my spirit team, I know I'm 100% guided, backed up in life by my team in spirit, by my dad in spirit. And that gives you immense kind of grounding and safety on the earth. You feel like it's fine. Whatever happens, I know that it's the way it's meant to be. It will all, unfold how it should do. Like, there's no fear. There's no resistance. It's surrendering, isn't it? To this, just let it unfold.
Yeah, acceptance. I think acceptance. Yeah, acceptance from yourself, from other beings, even all the sentient beings, like whether it's animals or plants or flowers. And it brings enormous peace. Your coaching stuff for other people with grief, how did that come about? Was it something that your spirit team told you to do?
Yeah.
Did you feel it, or were you talking to friends and they said, oh my God, you should do something with this?
No, so it's all spirit. Everything that I create within my work and how I move now in life is spirit led. So everything I do is spirit led. We were in lockdown, actually. It was February at the beginning of the year, and we were still in lockdown. And I had a huge calling to start sharing not just my grief through my words, but in Facebook Lives, in sessions, in circles, letting people connect. And at the time, I was the most, and I kid you not, you can ask any of my close family and friends, the most nervous person about speaking on this type of thing, on Zoom or in person. Like any of that, I'd be like, absolutely not. I will never do that. I don't want to do that. It scares me. And I just had this huge thing, like, you've just got to do it. You've got to do it. You've got to do it. And it did just start off doing a little page. I had an Instagram and Facebook, which was Grief and Spirit. And I do free mini messages for people that needed them, because that's lovely to give them that, you know, when they're missing their loved ones. I would do a couple of Facebook videos where I'd pre-record stuff and talk about grief, and absolutely be, you know, so nervous the whole way through. Mm-hmm. And it almost unfolded as time went on. It, you know, it grew bigger and bigger. I felt more and more in my power with what I had to speak about. It was almost like a realizing, like, and remembering in a way what I speak and what I share is, you know, it's valid and it deserves to be shared. There isn't a fear around that. There's no resistance anymore. And it all came back to, you know, we look into how we were, you know, we grew up and things that happened to us in our teen years and things like that. It all came down to being scared to speak my truth, because I was worried how people would see that, you know, yes. Sitting on social media and saying, oh, I'm a psychic medium and I'm going to do this. And there was a huge fear for me to do that. People would be like, oh my God, what do you mean you're a psychic medium? Like, who are you? You know, there was only a couple of people that really knew how I connected to spirit. It's not something I shared like hugely with people. But as soon as I worked through that whole resistance and that barrier, and I basically just ran into the fear regardless and thought, you know what, I'm just going to crash through this, it just unfolded. So yeah, I do so many different things now with grief coaching. We have programs, I do one-to-one coaching, and everything I do, and I make it really quite clear, everything involves spirit. Everything I do will always be with spirit. Every call, everything I write, everything I share, spirit come forward. My retreats, spirit are there. Like, and it's not spirit in terms of all their loved ones. I mean, my guides. So they are there, and we do it as a collective. And it's like bringing the two worlds together for me. And if I don't do that, I don't feel balanced within what I'm working in. Okay, so I have to bring that other part through, and it works that way for me.
And when you do coaching or mentoring with someone, do your spirit team connect to their spirit team? So if they have questions about, you know, whether their parents or grandfather have died, can you connect to their spirits?
Yeah. So that would be more of like a reading. So if I did a private reading for somebody, like any medium will tell you, you can't guarantee that your loved one is going to come through. It's really up to spirit. It's not up to us. We're simply just that vessel and channel. But my guide will obviously come forward with the intention to bring somebody through from their family. And on other occasions, the person I'm reading for, their guide has come through and then shared messages about that person's path and journey with my guide. And then it's come through me to be able to share with them. So it just, I believe whatever you're meant to have at the time within a reading will be what happens. You know, you might get the person you really wanted to speak to. On other times, you might not. And at the time, it might not make sense. You might be really upset and frustrated. Like, why didn't they come through? But everything I deeply, deeply believe is aligned to you at the time. And you just have to trust. You just have to trust.
And do you've had people that were really skeptic, but thought, okay, I'm going to try it, to have a consultation with you. And then you baffle them. They're like, oh, wow, this does exist.
Yeah, and that happens a lot now, not so much before, but since we've had this whole lockdown and people have been forced to kind of go within themselves, and, you know, we haven't been able to go outside and do the things we want to do, it's left people in like a deep reflection, and it's allowed them to ascend in a way and open up themselves to the possibilities of there being more. And I've got friends that I've been friends with for years and years, like childhood friends. And they've known that I've always been into, everything like this. It's always been, my thing. And every time we speak about it, they'll be like, no, it's not for me. It's not for me. I just don't get it. I'm not interested, Phoebe. And I'm fine. That's fine. I'm so fine with that. However, they are now like fully in my world with everything to do with spirit. They've all got their oracle decks. They're all saging their houses. They're all, trying to channel in writing. They're all alchemizing. And, when you're like, I knew that you would get there. It's just up to people. It's when it's their time, isn't it? We can't force anyone on any path. Same as me. I could have done my psychic mediumship from being a child, but I didn't want to, so we can only do things when it's aligned to us, when it's meant to be. A lot more people are really starting to explore the world of spirit and everything that comes with it.
And do you feel like they have also become more acceptance and more peace within themselves as well?
I think there's a huge awareness at the moment of how much we hold on ourselves as humans. And I think that's all come from the lockdown, like I said, where we've had to go within and look at our darker parts and look at the things that really hold us back and really weigh us down. And I think that's really opened up a lot of people that are willing now to work through those things, like I said, to become free moving, so that they can start, really living their soul mission. And I think it's a real beautiful time really to work with spirit and be a medium, I feel.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think it will bring you would help a lot of people and bring a lot of peace in the world and the earth world especially. Yeah. And so people can find you on different platforms.
Yeah, loads
Spirit
of
and Grief. Yes.
So I've got Grief and Spirit on Facebook and Instagram. And then I've got my female work, which we're going to talk about later. Which is on a different account, which I can share in the comments. In the comment.
Well, I'll put everything anyway on the descriptions as well. And also your book, which is it has a very, very good reviews as well, I see on Amazon.
I know.
People love it.
Yeah, there's beautiful reviews. I'm really deeply grateful, actually. And my blog, which is No Textbook. So you can read that as well if you are on your own grief journey.
Yeah, I think that's very, very helpful. Well, thank you so much. We can talk for hours. I know we can, because that's what we did before. Phoebe will definitely come back to the podcast because we've discovered quite a lot of topics that she can share with us. The next one with Phoebe will be with female empowerment, and not quite sure when that one will be launching, but obviously we'll keep you up to date. Yeah, thank you so much, Phoebe, for this. I've learned a lot, and I can't wait to speak to you next.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Tali and Loz podcast. Next week, we have Victoria talking about dragon energy. See you then.